Hi, welcome to another edition of our Paterno Presser. Cory, Geiger, Neil, Rudel. I do want to mention one thing first because we talked about this last week. Joe was really sharp in his press conference today. He wasn't last week, kind of got confused a little bit, but I thought he was excellent today, heard everything pretty well, answered everything really well.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a commentary on where we are with him, that, you know, that his ability to understand the questions, to hear the questions, to respond crisply, and I was glad to see that today. I thought he had corrected some things on the radio show last week, even though he doesn't take live calls, that he had messed up during the week here last week. So yeah, that didn't necessarily change the outcome of Ohio State, but he was better today.
That's where we are with an 83-year-old coach. You're going to be on the constant health watch, and I will say this, Neil and I were at Joe's Friday night press off-the-record session at Ohio State, and I thought he was great. He was telling a lot of jokes, really one of the best he's ever been. So for folks out there who listened to last week's press conference and you wondered, you know, what Joe's state is, he is a lot better right now than he was last Tuesday. Now, Penn State, a big loss at Ohio State, played well in the first quarter, hammered in the second quarter. This team right now, 4 losses by more than 20 points. Where do they go going forward, Neil?
Well, you know, it's kind of interesting. Some of the storyline was that, you know, how much do you balance the present and the future? I think they're playing a lot of young guys. So, and Joe said, and it's true. I mean, they're trying to get as many wins as they can for this year. For now, they'll worry about the future in terms of maybe bowl preparation, whatever game they would land in. So I don't think that. I think in some of those questions too, you're sort of fishing around to see if maybe he drops a hint on his own future, which he did not do today. But I think that is part of it. And I think when you get in a big game against Ohio State, they just don't have the kind of leadership or playmakers, especially on defense, to be able to stem the tide.
Joe did say, and I quote, I think we're a better team maybe than some people think we are. And again, that's interesting given the fact that they've lost by 20. And the loss to Alabama, you know, Alabama looked great at the time, but they've struggled some since. Iowa's clearly struggled, so that loss really doesn't look as good any longer. You know, so Illinois doesn't look as good any longer. Illinois gets hung for 67 by Michigan. So you can say that those teams were really good at the time, but, you know, really, I think all 4 of those losses are just very troubling.
They are, you know, but I think you look at any game that you're in, especially when the Illinois game was, I would throw that out because they were not very good at all. But, you know, if they punch the ball in against Iowa, is it a more competitive game? If they, you know, can sustain some things against Ohio State, a little more competitive, are there some things that you can build on going forward? And I'm not sure. I think they have problems on the offensive line consistently, defensively, and I thought Mike Irwin made a good point on the Nitwits about should they have come up and forced Pryor to pass, because he's not really a passer. And I think the criticism in that would be pretty fair, that, you know, should they have adjusted defensively when Ohio State was literally taking the ball and ramming it down their throat?
There are reasons the defense has struggled. We all know why. There have been a lot of injuries. The defensive ends, Mike Motti, by the way, Joe said probably will not play. He does expect Stephon Green to play, and he said we'll see about Silas Red, who got caught with the citation. But the defense, there have been some struggles, and there are injuries, and they're young, and all of that. And that is a reason, not necessarily an excuse. It's a reason. But the lack of adjustments is what bothers me. You just mentioned you've got a one-dimensional quarterback in Terrell Pryor. You couldn't stop him. You've got a one-dimensional quarterback in Denard Robinson in that game anyway. You couldn't stop him. You knew Ohio State was going to – why are they not able to make some adjustments?
I don't know. I don't know what happened at halftime, but clearly the Ohio State staff got the best of them, you know, motivation-wise and schematically, and you know, I don't know. You know, for years this staff was really a big asset, stability-wise, and I think, you know, you look at a lot of how other college football and pro football works, where you're constantly changing people, coming in with new blood,
new ideas,
coordinators, and there isn't definitely an upside to that. And maybe the downside to this is that the status quo, the never change, you can't teach anything because, you know, in Joe's case, you know, here's the shotgun, he played it in 1944. So, I mean, maybe there's been an air that has built up, maybe call it arrogance, that they've seen it all. But and yet they didn't adjust to it.
Let's go toward Indiana. They give up 83 points against Wisconsin, which is just an eye-popping number. But this is also the same team that played well against Iowa. So what do we know about Indiana? People are picking some big scores and all this and that. Are we going to see the Indiana against the Badgers, or are we going to see the Indiana against Iowa?
Well, I think it might depend on what kind of intensity Penn State comes out with. They're going to be in a pro stadium. This is a team that historically has not been able to stop anybody. So, to me, Penn State ought to be able to really pound the ball, keep Indiana's offense off the field, and at times Indiana has had a good offense. We don't know about Chapel.
Right. So what's your score?
I picked it 35-20. Penn State thinking that they're going to challenge the offensive line, they're going to challenge the running game enough that that'll open up some passing lanes.
I agree with everything you said. I've got it
34-17,
so we're in agreement as we get toward the end of the season. One more thing. Can this be a successful season? They've got Michigan State sitting there with one loss. Wherever they go in a bowl game, they'll probably play a middle-of-the-pack comp. Can this be, with 4 20-point losses, a successful season?
I don't know that. I think it could be a successful season if they would beat Michigan State and go beat somebody in a bowl game at 9-4. I would say yes. A raging success, no. Is it a failure? I would say no, given all the injuries and all the defensive losses they had. If they could salvage a 9-4, I think I would qualify that as a success. A great year by Penn State's standards. No, not even a really good year, but I think I could accept that.
I cannot. You lose that badly 4 different times. Even if you beat Michigan State, I'm not sold on Sparty at all. That's a home game. There will be the electricity in the stadium. Even if you win that, you're not going to get a great bowl opponent. But right. When you lose that badly to those 4 teams, right. And again, okay. Iowa's already got 3 losses. That's not a great Iowa team, we found out. So I just, it's not a failure. I will agree there. Right. But to call it a success, I can't go that far.
Okay.
All right. For Neil Rudel, I'm Cory Geiger. Thanks for tuning in.